Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining me for another Westworld review. Today I will be talking about Season 1, Episode 5, Contrapasso. And as always, there will be episode spoilers, so just a heads up there. This was a very interesting episode. I think it was a little bit slower paced than most of the episodes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually enjoyed this episode quite a bit. And most of the reason for that is we did learn some more important insight into quite a few characters. And I really like the atmosphere of this episode. We got to see parts of the world that we haven't really seen a lot of yet. So I'll talk about a few of the subplots first that I feel were important. The Man in Black basically gets rid of Lawrence at the beginning of this episode because he made a mistake. He said he didn't need him. This is a scene that once again shows us how brutal the Man in Black is. And Teddy is now his new partner who somehow is supposed to help him find the maze. I'm not really sure how that's connected yet, but it will be interesting to find out. Also, there's a short scene with Elsie who goes to Bernard when she examines the host, the body of the host that tried to do her in a few episodes back. And she tells Bernard that someone is using the host with some kind of satellite equipment inside of them to collect data and take it out of the park. This is a very interesting twist, and I'm sure it will come into play later on. And I enjoyed this scene quite a bit. I felt like it was a pretty good twist. But most of this episode really focused on William, Logan, and Dolores, and a new mission they went into. Basically, they get this mission from a guy named El Lazo, who looks a lot like Lawrence, actually. There's definitely a connection there, as we find out later in the episode. And they're supposed to basically get this shipment of nitro for him. And they eventually do, but what's significant about this scene is that William has to make some kills to save them all. Of course, Logan thinks nothing of this, but William and Dolores are very disturbed by it, which sets up a scene where all three of them are in a house of pleasure, I guess I'll call it. And this leads to another ethical dilemma between Logan and William about how they act in this so-called game they're playing. And we also kind of learn it seems like Logan has a higher up position in the real world, which was kind of interesting. Also, Dolores is having a lot of issues. She's still having flashbacks. And she seems a little bit confused, but she's starting to piece some things together. She also knows that this is a dangerous mission as she sees they've been set up, and she convinces William to leave. They have a kiss, and I have to say these two have excellent chemistry, and they are really getting a lot closer together, even though one is a host and one is a human. So that is an interesting plot development to see what happens. So eventually they do leave, and they leave Logan behind, who's definitely in some hot water. He's in trouble, but William and Dolores don't help him, which is also kind of interesting considering that they are normally the more ethical characters in this situation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Logan. And Dolores also has to kill to get them out of trouble. And it seems like she's kind of changing her narrative and doing some things a different way. A lot of interesting character development in this episode. But the episode basically then ends with two scenes. One of them has Dr. Ford and the Man in Black talking. To my recollection, this is the first time that Anthony Hopkins and Ed Harris have had scenes together, and I have to say that they do a really good job in this scene. It's kind of interesting. Basically, the doctor knows what the Man in Black is up to, that he's looking for the maze, but he doesn't disapprove, or at least he says he doesn't. He seems to be okay with the Men in Black's mission, but I also wonder still what Dr. Ford's true agenda is. I'm not really sure about him, and Anthony Hopkins is doing a great job of keeping the viewer guessing, in my opinion, to what his true motives are, and it will be interesting to see in the future if he stands in the Man in Black's way or if he lets him discover what's going on with this maze, which is getting more interesting every week. And in the last scene, basically, Maeve wakes up and says she wants to change some things. And this kind of comes out of nowhere. There's a little bit of build up to it throughout the episode, but I definitely think it's going to lead to some plot progression, in the weeks to come. So an interesting final scene in an episode that was solid. We didn't get a ton of big events, but it was a nice atmospheric and in some ways quieter episode with a lot of character development, which I approve of. So I'm going to give Contrapasso a 4 out of 5. Definitely another strong episode for the series, which is getting very interesting now, and an episode I certainly recommend watching for fans of the show. So a 4 out of 5 for Contrapasso. I definitely look forward to what's coming up in the coming weeks, and as always, thanks very much for watching.